Take 3. Hello, I am Eva and I have decided to share this video and my journey with you, whoever really wants to listen to it, or it's kind of just, I've done it fucking again. I'm going to write myself off. Right, seriously now. Hello, I'm Eva and I would like to share with you my journey into IVF. Before I get into my journey and where I am and, you know, what's ahead of me, I would like to tell you a little bit about me and how I've come to this. Ooh, and get, oh, I need to find the picture, to be fair. Right, let me just find the picture first and then we can get into it, because I like to be prepared and I'm not really that prepared right now. Oh, there we go, cool. So, 2016, I started going for like investigations because I was experiencing some abdominal pain and I didn't know what it was, but secretly in my mind I was thinking, is it related to my womb, my ovaries? It felt reproductive. So I went to the Nuffield, which is a private healthcare. And, well, originally I actually went to my doctor. And my doctor had said to me, am I trying for children? And I said, I'm not trying for children, but, you know, I'm in a lot of pain. Can you do some investigations? And they said, if you're not actually trying for children, that they wouldn't put me on the NHS and do like tests and whatnot. So I thought, forget you. So I then put myself onto privately, Nuffield, and I privately funded all of my tests and investigations and stuff. So the first test that I had, I actually don't remember the name of it, which is really bad, but it was where they squirt dye into your womb via the cervix to see if there's like if there's a continuous flow. And what should have happened is that the dye should have gone straight into my womb, into my fallopian tubes and down into my ovaries, and the dye would have been absorbed by my body through that path. I was on the operating table. It's not an operating table. I was on the bed, and as soon as the doctor put the dye inside, I was just like in excruciating pain. And he could see on the monitor what was happening. And, you know, straight away they knew. He asked me, did he want me to stop? And I said, no, carry on. So he carried on squirting the dye. And cut a long story short, I was diagnosed with terminal hydrosalpinges, which is basically a blockage of scar tissue at the end of your fallopian tube where it meets the ovaries on both sides. Now the pain that I was experiencing was really sharp abdominal pain, and then bear with me. Hi babe. Yeah. 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 Well, I don't know. It's up to you. I'm actually in the middle of my vlog. No, that's okay. I'll just like edit it out. It's up to you. I don't know. I really like Petswood, but whatever you want to do. Let's look at it. Yeah. Yeah, okay, cool. Okay, love you, bye. Yeah. No, bye. 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 Where was I? So, God, train of thought. Terminal hydrosalpinge. So I was experiencing really sharp abdominal pains, and then every so often, this is going to sound really disgusting, but it's true, so whatever, I'd have like this gush of water, exactly that, and what was happening was that the gush of water, you kind of know what I'm trying to say. So what was happening inside me was your womb as an organ, your reproductive system as an organ self-cleans, and it produces, it secretes this fluid. Now what was happening was this fluid that my reproductive organ was secreting was actually getting trapped, because again I had scar tissue at my end of my ovaries and my fallopian tube, so my body couldn't absorb the fluid. So your fallopian tubes are like as thin as a grain of rice. I wish I had a grain of rice. As thin as a grain of rice. But my fallopian tubes were the size of small sausages. Like, all right, maybe an egg. It was probably about the size of an egg, right? And that was because it had expanded so much over years of being full of this fluid, so it would get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's where the pain would cause, until they became so full of fluid that the fluid would gush out of me. Anyway, skating over the rest of that. So I had two options. Option A, well, it's like, yeah, two options. So bottom line is, I can't have children naturally. And, you know, that was actually really hard for me to deal with, but we'll talk about that another time. If anybody has any questions, you know, feel free to, I'll write my email at the end of this on each of my vlogs, and each week, if any of you guys have got any questions, then I'm more than happy to talk about you stuff in detail. So until then, I'll just carry on. So, you know, obviously I can't have children naturally, so I was then given two options. A, you don't have the operation, and the operation was to remove both of my fallopian tubes. If I didn't have the operation, I would continue to have these abdomen pains, you know, water surges, and I would, you know, could try for IVF, but the fluid is actually toxic to an embryo, so there was a 0 chance of me ever becoming pregnant naturally. Well, naturally. The other option was to have the operation and then have a 50% chance of conceiving through IVF. So for me, it was a no-brainer. You know, it was in 2016, I was 29, just about to turn 30. So I decided to that I was 100% going to do it. I then decided to go back to the NHS and told my doctor, my GP, what had happened, and I showed him my scans and blah, blah, blah and everything, and they said, right, okay, amazing, we'll now cover you on the NHS. So I thought, okay, sweet. I then went for, you know, all of like the follow-up meetings with like their gynecologist and all of that stuff. So, you know, just like paperwork and admin to make sure that, you know, it was my scan and all of that stuff. So they did a lot of the same things apart from the test. Apart from the dye, they didn't do the dye. So we've, you know, proceeded on to now go through these tests. And they said, right, okay, we're now gonna, we'll perform the surgery. And I remember I went into the hospital to sign my consent form, like your waiver. And the doctor there had said to me, when I get onto the operating table, the x-rays that I've had are only an indication of damage, a sign. When they get in there, they could find more damage. And he said that they would then perform a hysterectomy. Now, I was 29, almost 30. I have no children. A hysterectomy was a no-no for me because I really want to have kids. So, given that information, I chose to go private for my operation. And I had a wonderful gynecologist, a wonderful woman that I found called Sarah Matthews, and she practices out of the Great Portland Street in London. So that's who so I had my operation in Great Portland Street Hospital for Women, and it was a really quick, easy, smooth process. I was in for the day. I don't remember the name of the operation. I think it's called like a salpingectomy, something like that. And that was it. So snip, bye-bye fallopian tubes, on your way, Eva, so I then discharged myself. I didn't stay in. I could have, but I chose not to. And that was that. And then that was another roller coaster of emotions for me after it happened. And again, I'm not going to go into it because I'll be here forever, but if you want to know more, then just ask me the question and I'll talk about it. So that was that, so that was 2016. And I just continued with life, carried on, blah, blah, blah. And then a couple of years ago, maybe a year after the operation, I started to get more abdominal pains, which I thought was quite weird. And I was like, oh, it now can't be that. So maybe I've got IBS or, yeah, I put it down to anything. So I carried on for so long. I carried on for so many years. And then I, again, after I had my first operation in 2016, I got private healthcare, and I've been using that ever since. So I've just recently had another operation, again, around my, all to do with my reproductive system, because I had, and it was an effect, it was caused after my first operation. I had endometriosis, that's what the pain was, and I had fibrous adhesions, and the fibrous adhesion was behind my ovary, webbing out to like my uterus and my bowel. So I had, after my operation in 2016, I had really, really bad periods, really heavy periods, to the point where I wouldn't be able to leave the house on the first day. I'd be in cramps. I'd have to take like medication like naproxen, which is quite strong. And yeah, so I lived like that for a long time. And as the years got on, I then got intermittent bleeding. So I'd wake up and I'd be like, psh, go, like blood. So it was really worrying. And that's what led me to go back to my gynecologist, and he said, look, Eva, the only way that we'll be able to find out is if we perform a laparoscopy, and a laparoscopy is where they go in through your stomach, through I think 2 or 3 incisions, and then they have a look around. So yeah, I said okay, let's do that, and we did that in April this year, April 2019. And when he was in there, again, he found the endometriosis and he found the fibrous adhesions, and I've got a picture for you. So if you can see, you probably can't, that's really bad. That's, oh my god, let me just get my Oh no, I need to plug my charger in. So that is my fallopian tube. Oh, it's so bad. It's literally terrible. That's my fallopian tube, and that there is actually a fibrous adhesion. I'm just gonna pause it so I can get my charger. Bless me. Start again. Okay, charged. So after my operation in April, it took me 4 weeks to recover, and then I decided to begin my IVF journey. So the consultant that I chose to go with is called Mr. True. Online I did my research about the best consultants in the UK, and he's rated one of the top 5, somewhere in that. Don't know what he is in top 5, but he's top 5. And he practices out of Harley Street for Boston Place Fertility. So they have a consultation unit in Harley Street, and then they have like the IVF clinic in Marylebone. So we first went to see, my husband and I went to see Mr. True, and I told him my situation, no brainer, you know, you've got to go for IVF. But there's another thing called ICSI, which is where so IVF is where they take the sperm, put the sperm in a petri dish, whatever, and they let the sperm make its way to the egg. ICSI is where they take the best sperm, take the best egg, and inseminate. And I think it's ICSI. And that's what we've gone for. Now, usually they use ICSI for men that have fertility problems. Well, that's what it's recommended for. In Australia, many people actually go for ICSI because it's just a higher rate of success, rather than let the sperm try to do its job and find its way to the egg. You might as well just put it in. But that comes at a higher price band. So because we just, you know, want to do anything that we can to make it work, we've chosen to go for ICSI. Now, the total cost of our treatment, I think it was £6,300, and that's for one cycle. That includes all of the scans, it includes all of the advice that they give you, obviously, because you have to have consultation appointments. It includes the cultivation, is that even a word? Whatever, it's the, like, when it does, it's like the cultivation of eggs. It includes obviously the procedure, the ICSI procedure. And it also includes, if I say includes one more time, incubating. So they incubate the embryo for 5 days, and then they do the insemination, and the harvest. So it basically includes everything. They also can freeze your eggs as part of that, 6,300. But then if you want to continuously keep your eggs frozen for, you know, year on year, I think it's like an extra £250 a year, which is minor, really. It's well worth it. If you go through the process, you're spending £6,000 to harvest eggs. You know, you might get 6 good eggs. Only one of them is going to be, you know, put inside you. Is that even a word? Only one of them is going to be they're only going to put one in you, basically. So they freeze the other embryos, and you can try again, you know, year on year with your healthy eggs. So that's what it includes. We obviously had to, well, not obviously, but we had to pay for other tests. So before Mr. True decided what our course of treatment was, we had a AMH test, and the AMH test tests the health of your eggs. Now, I had a test in 2016 before my original operation, and I think I was 23 point something, which is in the good bracket. And then 3 years later, today, you know, we then had the one with Mr. True, and I was 18 point something, which put me just below the good bracket in the satisfactory category. But for a woman of my age, I'm 33, 34 this year, that is natural. It's natural degradation. Is that even a word? Yeah. It's the natural decline of the health of your eggs, so that's fine just for a woman of my age. So yeah, so 6,300 for the ICSI treatment, and then separately to that I paid, and I'm looking at stuff here, so we paid £767 on drugs that you would need for your procedure. So I want to talk to you a little bit more now about what my procedure entails and the drugs that I will have to use. So where I am now in my cycle, I have had my drugs, had my pre-nurse consultation, and that consultation, the last consultation I had was with the nurse, and they talk about all of the things that you're going to go through. Obviously you're going to take hormones to stimulate egg growth, so you can be overcome with, you know, multitude of emotions. So they talk to you about how to deal with that. They also give you advice on what really to do. So, you know, don't drink lots of alcohol. I've chosen to not drink alcohol. I did have a glass of wine last week, and that's okay, but if you, that's it now. So I've now stopped drinking. I wasn't a massive drinker anyway. Obviously, you know, you shouldn't smoke. And really to just be quite relaxed about it. I have chose to take time off work, so I'm not actively, well, I'm it's a long story. But I've chose to work from home because it's a more of a relaxed environment. I don't have to travel, I don't have to commute, blah, blah, blah. But I have the option to do that. So, you know, not everybody has the option to work from home. But if you do have the option to not work whilst you're going through this process, especially into the week running up to you beginning your period, I would most certainly take that time off. So basically, now that I've got all my drugs, and I'm going to go through the drugs shortly, I have to wait for my period to start before you begin your IVF cycle. So I'm now going to read you off my schedule. So they've given me a 2-page schedule, and it's day by day, and each day it tells me what I need to do. So on day 1 of your period, now if your period is before 12 noon, then that counts as day 1. If it's after 12 noon, that doesn't count as day 1. So it's got to be like heavy blood flow. Now there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's 7 different types of medication that they've given me. The first one is called Gonal F, which is that, and that has to be refrigerated, and that's a self-filled pen. So on my 2nd day of my period, I inject this 150, is it milligrams? I think it is milliliters. 150 milliliters. So I inject that into my stomach, and that has to be refrigerated. But once you open it, you don't have to refrigerate it. You can take it out the fridge basically and put it next to your bed. The most important thing that they said about that was that I just need to adjust this. The most important thing that they said was that I should inject this at the same time every day, and that's really important for me to do that. So I do that on day 2 of my period. I continue to do that on day 3, on day 1 and day 3. So day 1, day 2, day 3. On day 3 of my period, I should attend a scan. So through your, I think it's like a 12-day cycle when you inject this gonal F, you have scans every other day. So maybe every 2 days, and that's just to check how your eggs are growing, basically. So then on day 5 of my process, I then begin injecting this, which is Femidol. Can you see that? No? Anyway, Femidol, which is also a needle. Okay, so I inject, so now on day 5 of my cycle, I inject that and that together. Now Femidol is a liquid, obviously. So Femidol stops you from prematurely ovulating, so that keeps your eggs where they're supposed to be whilst you're going through this process. So then I continue to inject Femidol, Femidol and the gonal, basically could be for 12 days. So from the first day of my period to 12 days, I could be injecting those 2. But every 2 days I have a scan, and the scan will tell me whether I'm ready or not. So whether my eggs are ready, whether I'm, you know, ready to be harvested. Then on the day that I'm, the day before, they call it the day of the trigger, the doctor will tell me to inject this, which is Ovitrel. Can you see? No, you just can't see that. Ovitrel, which is Ovitrelle, and I basically inject all 250 mils of that. Now that's really what triggers me and gets me ready for my egg collection. Again, this is the second medication that has to be kept in the fridge, okay? But then again, this only has 250, and so once it's used, it goes in the bin. So then that's in the evening that I do that. Then on the day of egg collection, so that's the morning after I've done, so I did my trigger, let's say I do my trigger on a Wednesday night. On the Thursday, I'm gonna go in for my egg collection. So on the day of my egg collection, I take this, and this is suppository, and that suppository is, so this is diclofenac, and that goes in the bum. Yeah. So that goes in your bum orally, like that. And that is used, the diclofenac is used to help with the pain afterwards. So I think it's kind of like a numbing agent, because the harvest happens under anaesthetic, so I'm not going to be awake, but I think afterwards it can be quite painful because they go in through the vagina and through the walls of your uterus into your ovaries, and they take the eggs out. So that's that. So I will take that in the morning, the diclofenac, that's the suppository, and then I'll have the procedure, I'll go under anaesthetic, etc, etc, and then the eggs have been collected. On the day that my eggs are collected, my husband also has to go, why did I do that? My husband also has to come with me, and he does his sample. So it's fresh, and they've basically got everything that they need then to create the embryos on the day. After my operation, I will then take, it's not an operation, whatever, after the procedure, I will take doxycycline, and that is essentially an antibiotic, and I will take that 1 capsule twice a day until they run out. And then, you know, I go home, you know, they will then create the embryo and they will then incubate for 5 days and watch how the embryo grows. Once that has happened, I then begin, so on the following day after my egg collection, I then begin to take progesterone, which is a, oh, that's pretty good, which is a hormone that women produce anyway. So as you know, we produce estrogen and progesterone, and essentially the progesterone is preparing me to be pregnant. You know, it supports healthy pregnancy, so I am taking those in preparation for the insemination. So I do that on the following day after my eggs are collected, so I'll be doing that 5 days before they do the insemination. And then day 4 they do the embryo transfer, and then they do the blastocyst. And the blastocyst, I believe, is where they then freeze the rest of the embryos that they're not going to use. And then it's really a waiting game until they tell me to carry out a pregnancy test. So yeah, that's where I am. The date is the 17th of June. Oh, but I also have polycystic ovaries, so I don't usually have cycles every 4 weeks, but it could be like every 4.5 weeks, every 5 weeks. So really, I'm waiting, it's just a waiting game now to see when I come on my period. And as soon as I know, you'll know. So yeah, I hope that you found this really informative. I hope that you enjoyed, and I wouldn't say enjoyed, but I hope that you took something away from it. I will try to do these every single week. I would really like you to follow my journey, so please subscribe. Why am I doing that? I don't know. Please subscribe. And I will post my email address, and please ask me any questions that you've got, because I just really want to be able to support other women like me who, you know, it's not really easy to find information, and a lot of people don't really talk about their journey, and so many of us are going through it. I just don't want anyone to feel alone, because it's a really hard thing to deal with. So yeah, let's have love.